This little plastic card. It's not just a license to drown slightly slower. It's the key to a $700 million corporate empire, built on Johnny Walker, questionable lawsuits, and the eternal optimism of people who think buying a red woolly hat will make them Jacques Cousteau. Now, as a chartered accountant, MBA, and veteran of the corporate knife fights, restructuring, I've seen supply chains more tangled than a diver's octopus hose. But PADI, they've turned selling dreams into a science. And like any good business, it involves money, power, and a whiff of scandal. Our story starts with two men, a bottle of whiskey, and a revolutionary idea. What if we made scuba less military? Cue the modular courses, photo IDs, and the first ever corporate mutiny in flippers. Flippers. But here's the twist. PADI's real genius wasn't teaching people to breathe underwater. It was teaching investors how to breathe profit. And today, with diver dropout rates hitting 90% and a secret war to monopolize the oceans, buckle up, because corporate strategy meets Shark Week. Grab your regulator, love. We're going in. Our story begins, as many great corporate sagas do, with two chaps, a shared vision and a rather strong beverage. John Cronin, a salesman with a knack for spotting an opportunity, and Ralph Erickson, an educator and originally a scuba instructor with NAUI, looked at the chaotic world of scuba training in 1966 and thought, this simply won't do. Back then, learning to breathe underwater often felt more like an SAS selection process than a holiday pursuit. Fragmented, overly complex, and frankly a bit too military. Cronin and Erickson had a very distinctly unmilitary idea: make diving safer, easier, and crucially, more accessible to the masses. And so, the Professional Association of Diving Instructors, PADI, was born. Not in a stuffy academic institution, but over a bottle of Johnny Walker. Clearly, a truly visionary in spirit was involved. PADI's genius, though, wasn't just teaching people to clear their masks. It was in systematically simplifying the whole process. In 1967, they launched the Open Water Diver course, a revolutionary modular program. No more one-size-fits-all military drills. Instead, digestible chunks of theory and practical skills. And bless their cotton innovative socks, they insisted on twice as many dives for their open water course as the competitors. A refreshing commitment to actually, diving. The skills too weren't about tough or strong you were, but about skills that were needed by the average person and would help them in the event of an incident. Then came the positive identification card in 1968, a photo ID, revolutionary. Suddenly, your certification wasn't just a scribble in a logbook. It was a bona fide, globally recognized passport to going diving. By the late 70s and early 80s, PADI was pumping out its own integrated multimedia materials, manuals, VHS videos, tests and exams, all designed to make learning fun, efficient, and more importantly, scalable. The result? Incredible growth, a surge in certified divers, and a rather reassuringly, a drop in fatality rates. Turns out, making things easier could also make them safer. Who knew? By 1979, PADI was already the big fish in the global certification pond, but they weren't done innovating. In 1988, they rolled out the Recreational Dive Planner, or RDP. This proprietary no-stop decompression table became synonymous with safe recreational diving, a smart move that further cemented their brand. And showing a foresight that had many dot-com pioneers blush, PADI embraced digital learning in 1995. They allowed budding divers to study theory from the comfort of their own, presumably dry homes. Not content with just teaching us to breathe bubbles, PADI also dipped his toe into environmentalism, launching Project Aware in 1989. Integrating conservation ethics into their courses was a savvy move, turning divers into ocean advocates. By 1992, Project was a formal 501c non-profit funded by PADI Inc. A nice touch, proving that even a burgeoning corporate entity can care about the planet, presumably after a decent profit margin was made. Now for the juiciest part. and where PADI's narrative takes a rather corporate turn. Picture this: 1983, the founders, John Cronin, Ralph Erickson, and a chap named Craig Carlson are sitting pretty. PADI is a non-profit California corporation, but they also had a separate for-profit entity creatively named PADI International. The founders then sold the non-profit PADI to their own for-profit entity for $200,000. Now, was that fair market value for a rapidly expanding organization issuing over 100,000 certifications a year? The disgruntled instructors who'd become members of the PADI organization and contributed to the growth, well, they certainly didn't think so. It was, shall we say, a highly advantageous transaction for the founding trio, setting the stage for the massive valuations we'd see decades later. Now, you might be thinking, that was a rather neat trick, wasn't it? The member PADI instructors, well, they saw red. A non-profit member organization founded for the greater good of safe diving suddenly morphing into a private for-profit enterprise. The instructors cried foul, alleging PADI was becoming a commercial venture, shortening courses, lower training standards, and all without a single member vote. The audacity. A major lawsuit ensued. It was, by all accounts, a very strong argument. The instructors had a point, but alas, as is often the case with these David and Goliath tales, David's legal funds ran dry and the lawsuit petered out. PADI sailed on and a precedent was set. From that moment on, PADI was a private company, free to be bought and sold, generating rather substantial wealth for its owners. A clear victory for corporate agility, perhaps less so for democratic ideals of a non-profit. Following Cronin's passing in 2003, PADI became a hot potato in the world of private equity. Lincolnshire management snapped it up and then sold it to Providence Equity Partners in 2015. Providence, bless their private equity hearts, apparently helped PADI achieve huge growth in the Chinese market because nothing says underwater adventure like a booming emerging economy. And naturally, they upgraded the e-commerce system too. 2 years later, 2017, PADI was sold again for a staggering $700 million to a consortium of wealthy families and investors called Mandarin Fish Holdings. Yes, Mandarin Fish. One can only assume they're fans of particularly colourful, if small, aquatic creatures. PADI remains private today, its financial inner workings as murky as a silty lake dive site. So, from a whiskey-fueled vision to a $700 million acquisition, PADI has utterly dominated the recreational diving landscape. Over 30 million certifications issued, 1 million every year, a vast network of 128,000 professionals and nearly 7,000 dive centers, an estimated 70% of the global market share according to PADI. PADI wasn't just a leader, it was practically the ocean's landlord. But even the biggest fish can find themselves in choppy waters. Despite PADI's historical dominance, the wider scuba diving industry is, shall we say, experiencing a spot of turbulence. Market segmentation analysis suggests the industry is in a mature or managed decline phase. Participation is shrinking, and the core divers, those of us who actually get wet regularly, are dropping out even faster. And here's the rather alarming truth. Diver dropout rates are huge. PADI's own stats indicate that 90% of new divers never make it to 50 dives. In the USA, despite over 100,000 new certifications annually, more scuba divers are dropping out every year than there are new divers getting certified. That's not a trend. That's a leaky boat. The market itself, super saturated, and crucially, with non-existent product differentiation, courses and gear are often seen as commodities. And what happens when everything's a commodity? When people look at the different options for entry-level training, whether they do PADI, SSI, or any other agency, the often used line is, it's the instructor, not the agency that matters. In which case, the training agencies can't create a premium differentiation and prices race to the bottom. Dive shops, historically run by passionate hobbyists rather than shrewd business managers, are struggling. Only about 20% of PADI-affiliated owners report making a decent living. One senses a distinct lack of Aston Martins in the average dive shop car park. And consumer behavior has changed too. Younger generations are more casual divers. They want to travel light, do a bit of diving, do a bit of paddleboarding, do a bit of sailing. It's an activity, not a lifestyle. Plus, the rise of online learning means more people are doing their theory at home, finishing their certs in sun-drenched locations like this, and bypassing local dive shops entirely. The classical dive shop model is under siege. So how does PADI, the corporate colossus, respond to this rather alarming forecast? With a multi-pronged strategic counteroffensive, naturally. They're diversifying and they're tightening their grip. PADI Travel, a significant online platform for booking dive trips, resorts and liveaboards. A smart move to capture that juicy lifetime value of a diver. PADI Gear, branded apparel, eco-friendly stuff, leveraging that powerful brand recognition. And finally, PADI Club, touted as the world's largest community of ocean lovers. Members supposedly dive more, buy more gear, take more courses. Sounds like a subscription model for aquatic engagement, doesn't it? Their digital transformation is in full swing. PADI Adventures, the enhanced dive shop locator, all designed to drive traffic and bookings to their affiliated centers. Dive shops listing on PADI Adventures have seen increased visibility, expanded customer bases, and additional revenue streams. Those with complete profiles on the locator have seen astronomical gains. A 53% increase in profile visibility, 184% rise in web traffic, and a rather astonishing 379% surge in clicks to their e-learning stores. It's a digital ecosystem carefully cultivated to keep PADI divers in the PADI orbit. Of course, these stats are all published by PADI at member forums. I know I've not seen anywhere near those levels of increase, but hey, I might be the outlier. Project Aware was once the independent environmental conscience of PADI. But after years of blurred lines between non-profit ideals and corporate branding, the relationship was changed. In 2021, PADI Aware was born. Still a 501c? Yes, but now fully wearing the company uniform. However, some former PADI pros and shop owners had alleged that donation handling was opaque, and there was inadequate separation of accounting, marketing, and logistics between Aware and the main PADI engine. That's a huge red flag for any non-profit, especially one linked to a multinational corporation. So whether the change was about transparency or tidying up the books before someone else asked questions, we'll never officially know. But then, PADI unveiled a strategy that raised more than a few eyebrows. The sole agency policy. In January 2024, PADI EMEA, that's Europe, Middle East and Africa, as well as Southeast Asia, announced they would no longer accept membership from centers offering other training organizations. PADI says that this has been successfully rolled out in other regions as well. The rationale? To provide the best possible business, training and marketing support while protecting the PADI brand. And because multiple competing offers can create frustration and confusion for new and existing divers, those poor confused divers confronted with too much choice. PADI's internal research, they claim, shows that 75% of divers actively seek out the PADI brand. So why not lean into that and force exclusivity? This move has been loudly characterized by some as an attempt to monopolize scuba diving and control their dive center members. Rival agencies such as RAID have publicly stated they won't adopt such restrictive tactics, preferring an open market where consumers actually have the choice. Imagine. This policy, though, could, quite frankly, invite legal scrutiny for restrictive market practices, particularly in the US, and especially given PADI's dominant market position. It's particularly ironic, perhaps, as PADI's market share for entry-level certifications in the USA recently decreased from 55 to 43%, and in Western Europe from 30 to 27%, perhaps the iron fist only comes out when market share properly slips. PADI's long-term goal, though, with this policy is explicit: to help those who stay with PADI drive pricing and profitability in a commoditized market. Their business school workshops even focus on optimizing pricing strategies. It's a bold gamble. The full benefits, like increased brand loyalty and the ability to command premium pricing, are expected to take several years to materialize. It requires a consistent, superior, and unified brand experience across an exclusive network. It's a bet that exclusivity will lead to quality, and quality will justify higher prices. Or as some might say, less competition, more cash. Which of course means that PADI need to take a sharp knife to the existing network and thrift out those dive centers or instructors that are not prepared to walk the new walk. So PADI's journey is a fascinating one. From two blokes, a bottle of whiskey, to a global powerhouse. They revolutionized training, making diving accessible. Their controversial shift to a for-profit entity, while undoubtedly enriching its owners, provided the financial muscle to scale globally and invest in shiny digital infrastructure. Yet, the current dive landscape is undeniably challenging. A shrinking core market, those alarming dropout rates, and the pervasive commoditization. PADI's strategic response? The multifaceted diversification into travel, merchandise, and community, coupled with a rather assertive sole agency policy, is a bold, some might say audacious, attempt to redefine its value. The success of these initiatives hinges on PADI's ability to consistently deliver a premium, quality-controlled experience across its vast, increasingly exclusive network. It's about transforming its dive centers from struggling hobbyist havens into professional, profitable entities. This strategic realignment will almost certainly accelerate market consolidation, forcing everyone else in the industry to adapt to a more polarized, digitally integrated future. Now, this brings me to a couple of rather interesting questions for you, our intrepid viewers, who've bravely navigated the depths of PADI's corporate history. Firstly, and this is a big one, did PADI, in its admirable quest to make diving accessible, inadvertently commoditize scuba training? By standardizing everything, by making it easy to replicate, did they sow the seeds for the very price wars that plague the industry today? Was accessibility achieved at the expense of perceived value and perhaps a certain je ne sais quoi that once made diving feel exclusive and, well, expensive? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. And secondly, and perhaps more intriguingly, PADI is clearly trying to reverse this commoditization to drive higher prices, higher profit, and higher quality through a more exclusive PADI-only network. Can they pull it off? Can PADI truly reverse the trend, driving higher prices and higher quality from a smaller, more controlled network? My take? It's a monumental challenge. The human desire for a good deal is a powerful, powerful current, but PADI's brand recognition is immense. Their digital ecosystem is robust and their control over their network is tightening. If they can genuinely uplift the quality of the experience, if their dive centers become truly premium operations, and if the market is willing to pay for that perceived exclusivity, then perhaps it's a risky maneuver, like complicated deep dive on a single tank. But if anyone has the financial muscle and strategic cunning to pull it off, it's the corporate empire that started over a bottle of Johnny Walker. Whether they succeed or end up treading water, one thing is clear: PADI is determined to shape the future of the scuba diving, come hell or high water, or indeed come rising sea levels. Right, that's enough for me for corporate strategy for one day. Time, I went out and got wet. Have a great day, guys. Stay diving. If you've enjoyed this video, this long video, please give us a like, thumbs up, splash down on subscribe, and of course, feel free to comment on anything and everything that we've just talked about today. Love you guys. See you later.